Hi, this is Ian Hill from Judas Priest, and you're watching CMS TV.
You know,
dude, it's definitely going around, you know, about the younger people coming out to the older. And I think it's because there's just not a lot of newer rock music for these kids to latch onto.
Right.
Like I chatted yesterday with Ian Hill from Judas Priest.
Nice.
And I asked him about, I asked him about retirement is what I asked him about was, does he plan on retiring? And we got into a conversation about the crowds, and he literally said the same thing you're saying, that he sees a lot of younger kids now, and he in his mind he thinks, well, it's these kids were listening to Judas Priest when their dad was listening to Judas Priest, but now they love Judas Priest.
I think they look at it like Greek gods showing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how we looked at Zeus or somebody. They were like, they had the white beard and stuff, but they could still kick your ass. And I think that's what they're seeing, and they're respecting that. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, these guys are.
And there aren't any of those today. There aren't any. Stephen Pearcy is Stephen fucking Pearcy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Rob Halford is Rob Halford.
Rob freaking Halford.
If you're a fan of, I don't know, The Warning, I'm just throwing a name out there. If you're a fan of them, well, you can follow every meal they eat on social media. There's no mystery to them. There's no aura to them. Where when we were coming up, dude, you remember how you would gravitate to the slightest little thing that would be said in like Hit Parade or something.
Right.
You'd be like, you'd be reading an article and it would say something like, and Vince Neil, we caught up with Vince Neil at dinner and he was having a steak. And you'd be like, oh my God, Vince Neil likes steak. So do I. I like steak too. We're the same, man. There was that aura of, we didn't know anything about anybody.
Right.
And we would just learn these little tiny tidbits, and social media has taken all that away. Now we know way too much. And literally these younger bands, we've quite honestly seen them graduate from being local bands. We've seen them. We've seen them in their garage. We've seen them when they were 8 picking up their drumsticks for the first time or whatever. Sure. So there's no mystery.
No mystery at all. Right.
No, so it's kind of like your buddies. I'm sure you have buddies that play in bands.
I've had to go this way too. I get it. I know the mystique that went on with these bands, even specifically with Rat, because I think more so than Motley Crue, like Motley were funny enough guys that they were able to show them more, and they actually put out that uncensored video that made them seem so cool. I want to party with these guys.
Yeah, the limo with the hot tub in it, and and they were all in the back, all the chicks, and yes.
I mean, that was amazing. But aside from that, you just saw that whatever they gave us on that video. Rat did a video thing, and I think they had a couple things, but they didn't quite have the same. The members in Rat didn't quite have the same charisma or whatever. But what was good about that, like say with Warren, he had this mystery. It's like, who is this wizard on the guitar? You know what I mean? And it was a more visual and ear thing. You didn't really know too much about him personally, but that was fine,
Sure. Well, look at, I'll give you the example of who did it right and then did it wrong. Ozzy. Dude, when we were young, we were all petrified of Ozzy.
That's right.
I mean, we were literally like, I can remember going to see Ozzy at 85, I guess it would have been, whenever Master Puppets was, 85, 86, whatever, because it was Metallica and Ozzy. And I can remember trying not to tell my mom that I was going to see Ozzy, because Ozzy was the scary guy that, bit animals and You know, it was so demonic and got, that might be more than my mom was going to let me deal with. And so I remember telling her, I'm just going to see Metallica. I was like, I'm going to see Metallica.
Right.
And I would never mention Ozzy because there was that mystique about him. But then he became Osbourne's Ozzy, just a goofy clown.
Right.
And honestly, I don't know about you, but I never looked at him the same after the Osbournes.
Yeah, I'm not going to go pay for a ticket for a guy who can't even, who's stuttering and having difficulty talking. I mean, why would you pay for that?
Falls in the pond when he's feeding the fish or whatever. That I like the guy that bit the head off of animals and might cause a riot and was singing about death and suicide and was scary.
The question is, did they know that's what it was going to be when they started it, or did they think his numbers were dropping? This was a chance to maybe keep him relevant doing the Osbourne show, and then it really took off because people were just so intrigued by how this guy lives.
I honestly think that it was. I honestly think that they didn't know what they were getting. Mm-hmm. And because you got to remember too, that was really before reality TV. The only thing that was out there reality TV wise was like The Real World,
right?
Which was sort of real. At least the first season or two was sort of real before they started writing it up. And I honestly think that they thought Ozzy's life was so radical that they put it on, and it was different. I mean, he definitely lived a different life, but once you realize that it wasn't horror all the time. Like, no. I don't know what you thought. I always thought Ozzy lived in a fucking scary unlit castle because that just is what you thought Ozzy would live in. You didn't think Ozzy would live in a mansion in Beverly Hills.
Kind of like what they showed Gene Simmons in the Kiss one.
Yeah, they exactly.
Did that. What was that called? The Kiss one? I forgot.
Uncensored.
Uncensored, yeah, which was funny. That was one of my favorite ones I had on tape back when you go into Gene Simmons' place and he's got women's heads on the walls and it looks like a dragon's lair in there.
Dude, I mean, all of that stuff at the time, all of those types of bands, like all we thought with Kiss or Motley Crue or whatever was, especially Motley, we thought all those guys do is take drugs and fuck women. That's what we thought. We didn't have any idea about anything else about them, that they were regular people and that they could have regular
lives.
Life.
They had
wives.
Kids.
What is that?
Well, yeah, like they were raising kids because you realize now, they have these kids that are 27, 30 years old. They were raising babies then. They just put that perception out there that they lived these lifestyles. It was made up.
Right. It was all made up. But we didn't know. And the only stuff they ever, think about Kiss especially.
Right.
And we'll go with Uncensored. Remember Paul laying in the bed with like 30 women in the bed? Exactly. And he's just, and he's just like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing here? And he's just playing the role. And meanwhile, that's just not who the guy was at all. But
no,
Kiss did it as a career. Every time it waned with Kiss, there was always the, let's put the X in sex and let's, you make me rock hard. And, they would write a song to keep the mystery going, the myth of Kiss going. And they did that even in the early days when they were makeup Kiss. They became Kiss in the Phantom of the Park, like, oh, here's these monsters running around the park. Those guys were the masters of it. I think the real Ozzy showed itself and just was a totally different thing. And it didn't match. Which is what I think part of the appeal was that it didn't match. Because really, if you think about it, he never sold well after the Osbournes. He never had a good album after the Osbournes. But he's arguably 10 times the celebrity he was before the Osbournes.
Seemingly every rock guy that I'm aware of that's been on a television show, their pay and fame has skyrocketed.
Oh yeah,
from it, where half the time they get recognized is from the TV show, not so much the music they did. Even Janie Lane, I remember when he was alive, people would recognize him. You're on The Biggest Loser. You're the Biggest Loser. We'd be walking down the street and people would come up, some big black lady. I know, I saw you. You're the Biggest Loser.
He's like, gee, thanks.
Yeah, he was on this show where they had to lose weight because he had gotten
Right.
like overweight, and so I don't know how much weight he lost on the show.
Yeah, Janie's a tough one, man. I mean, I knew Janie a little bit because he obviously one of his best friends is one of my best friends, Billy Morris. And so I got to know Janie over the years. I sat in the studio a couple of times when they were recording some Warrant stuff, some of the stuff like that song Face that was on Latest and Greatest. I remember watching Janie record it. You know, and I was in there for some of the Jabberwocky stuff that he recorded.
Right.
You know, so I got to know. I certainly am not trying to perpetrate myself here. I'm not trying to say, well, look at me, I knew this guy back when. You know,
No.
I wasn't that kind of friend, but I got to know him a little bit peripherally from my friend Billy. And Janie was a really nice dude. And the unfortunate thing about Janie Lane, he was one guy of very big fame that was not built for it.
Right.
He was never, he always would pay attention to every word that was ever spoken about him. He would fight anybody that said anything about him. Somebody would say, you guys played a shit show. No, we didn't. No way. You must have been high. You know, he was always that guy.
He didn't make it past that tough 90s to late 90s, early 2000s time. If he had just hung in there like another couple years, he would have been celebrated.
I agree.
More. Those were just dark times for everybody. All of us were playing crappy club shows then.
The thing that separated the ones that survived from the ones that didn't, though, were the ones that survived. Steven. How many bad reviews has Steven had? He's had a bunch.
One.
Had one from us. He had one from me and Neely, which that was your introduction to
our
me.
whole friendship, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but Steven, I guarantee you, while you might have been mad, Steven probably was just like, gives a shit what those dummies say. You know, I know, because he was hardened. He was there was a toughness that you had to have to make it out of the 80s.
Right.
And Steven had it, and Bret Michaels has it, and the Motley guys have it, and Janie never did. Janie,
Skin, yeah.
He really would take. He was a heart on his sleeve guy, and he wrote from the heart. But the reason he was able to do that was because he let everything in. And while it was great for his creativity, it obviously ended his life early because he couldn't live with it. You know, and that's sad and it sucks. I can't tell you. Dude, there's two different interviews. They're on YouTube or Rumble or somewhere if anybody wants to look them up, of me and Neely with Janie. 2 different years. And both times we asked Janie the same question. Why don't you just come off the road and write songs? You'd be great at it. He would probably have become one of those songwriter Hall of Fame guys that would have written 50
like the autograph
songs
singer, the autograph singer that did I forgot the television show he ended up doing.
Dude, like any of them, like John Bush. John Bush made all his money fucking doing commercials for Burger King. You know, I mean, as great as John Bush is as the Armored Saint guy and the Anthrax guy, John Bush made his money singing jingles for Burger King. You know, I mean, Janie, I could see Janie of writing 20 #1 hits for Taylor Swift or Adele or Jason Aldean or whatever, because his music, you could take I Saw Red, I'm just throwing a song.
Yeah.
You could make that a country song. You could make that a pop song. You could make that a Carrie Underwood song. You could make that a John Montgomery song.
Yeah.
The guy had a universal talent, but he couldn't find it in himself to pull himself out of what he knew, which was Warrant and being on the road and being in that mess of, hey, bro, I know you're trying to get clean, but just a little bump. You want just a little bump? And he would jump for it, or he would jump for the booze.
Right.
It killed him.
Another guy that was his own worst enemy passed on this week, Jack Russell.
Jack Russell, yeah.
That was, I guess, not a surprise. I mean, we had heard when that last show that he did where he couldn't perform, and they had somebody else come up there, and he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And they that he was going to be, when he announced he was coming off the road. I was hearing things at that point that he was only going to be around another week or two or something. And then sure enough, that was the case. But you're still kind of surprised when you see it. You expect these guys to go into some kind of, okay, they're done with music, so now they're going to go into an old age home for a while or something,
or
like
just
that.
disappear for a while and then
Right.
come back.
Maybe,
You know,
I
you
don't know.
expect them to disappear for 3 or 4 years, get healthy again. All of a sudden, here they are back again. But
Like Lou Graham, who's
Yeah.
we're playing with this weekend. I heard he's actually doing better shows now after all his health
Yeah.
issues. Yeah, so it was sad. Met with mixed reactions, across the board from everybody. But
the reactions were, I'm going to be honest, man.
yeah,
There were things that were bad about it.
right.
Eddie Trunk using it to as a tease was ugly. And I don't care.
I didn't hear that. What happened with that?
He put a tweet out
Okay.
and he says, can't say who it is, but you'll be hearing soon enough that a major star from the 80s has passed away. Like he used it as a tease.
Right.
And that's just shitty. Just keep your fucking mouth shut until it's announced. Let the family announce it and then
Right.
announce it. You don't have to be first at everything. And that's kind of lame. But and honestly, I saw the Mark Kendall tribute from the stage, and I was like, dude,
Okay.
come on.
So you
don't-
watched that was at the Arcada where I just played, is where they had that, right?
No, that's this weekend. He just the day that he died, or the day after he died,
okay,
they
I'm
played a
sorry.
show, and he jumped to the mic and
Gave a heartfelt speech. or
gave a
something.
heartfelt speech that was kind of hollow, and again, it's a day later, maybe.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother. There's conspiracy about this that we got into on the CMS, which I got killed for, and then it turned out I was right. But whatever. But Mark should have probably made a thought out statement.
Okay.
Because on stage to bring up the fact that you guys had turmoil at the end, that felt awkward. And I know he was just talking from the heart. I know Mark a little bit. I'm sure you probably know Mark as well.
Yeah, I do.
He's
I
a
know.
nice guy. He's not
Yeah.
he's not a guy that would say, "Ha ha, you're dead, fuck you." He's not that guy. And it just came off a little odd, but yeah, no, the conspiracy piece of it was that Jack died on April the 7th, and it wasn't announced until the 15th.
Right.
And we talked about it on the show on Saturday, and we talked about what could possibly be the reasons. Was it a financial thing? Was it a this? Was it a that?
That's what I was hearing, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, and of course I get killed for that. I get the look at you're talking about Eddie Trunk and you're just as bad. And I was like, I said I heard a rumor.
Yeah.
Turns out if you go look at his fucking Wikipedia page right now, guess what day it says he died? The 7th. So
Yeah.
I was right. So suck my dick. Every one of you complainers on fucking YouTube.
Right. Now, the one today that hit home for me was Bob Seger. Did you hear this yet?
Did he die?
Yeah, you didn't know that? Bob
No.
Seger passed away, man. Super big
Holy
bummer. I mean,
shit.
William Howe made a post, so I'm assuming he's legitimately knows that this is accurate, but he died at 79. Which surprised me because he just was on tour not too long ago, a couple years back, right?
I
He did his
saw it. I
farewell.
went to that tour.
Good thing you went, because I guess that was it. And he was still singing really good at that, right?
Dude, he was great. It was a great
You're not
show.
seeing it. You're not seeing it yet.
I don't see that he's dead. No.
Yeah. William Howell posted it, and I was trying to find something, and I was having trouble finding it as well. But I hope that dude's not wrong. But it
I hope he is wrong.
yeah, because you're like, no. You expect these people to like you not to see them for maybe ever again, but hear about they died, but that they got to live as an old person for till they were 90 or whatever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen that way. Sometimes one day you're seeing them at a concert, 2 years later they're passed on. It's
Yeah, dude, if that's true, that is gonna fucking break my goddamn heart.
yeah. I did not.
love Bob Seger, man.
Me too. I was thinking about it, and I was like, wow, that music is a time capsule for my whole life.
Oh
practically.
yeah,
Like from 5-6 years old, first probably hearing Night Moves or something,
Sure.
and then later Against the Wind, and all those great albums. My parents loved that, and we had a tape that was Bob Seger on one side and AC/DC Back in Black on the other.
Okay.
And so whenever we would do road trips, it was like we'd listen to Bob Seger, and then it would switch over. We'd rock out to the AC/DC. So I had a cool upbringing with that kind of music, and those songs just take me back. They're so meaningful and soulful, and what an amazing singer and artist. A guy that managed to stay pretty much out of trouble. You don't hear too much bad stuff.
No, not really.
Bob Seger. I mean, he had disappeared for a while, and then all of a sudden he was doing a farewell tour, and it was good to see him. You went and checked it out?
I went. It was a great show. It was like over 2 hours. He played everything you would want to hear. He rocked, but at the same time, he played all the mellow stuff too. Dude, if that's true, that is... it's going to crush me because Bob Seger, one of my all-time favorites, and fucking if Turn the Page isn't one of my top 3 songs of all time.
Right.
You know, I love Turn the Page and all the songs. And I've got, dude, like you, Time Capsule. The second time I ever got laid was, so stupid,
right?
Was playing We've Got Tonight on a
We've Got
boombox.
Tonight. Who needs tomorrow?
I can remember singing that to my girlfriend Melanie as I was trying to fucking undo her bra and shit.
Your pants are too tight. I can't get the zipper down. That's funny. Yeah, well, maybe there's a chance it's not true, but I would think that, DJ Will isn't going to post something that's not true.
Probably it may just not be out there yet, or the family hasn't put out an official statement.
I thought he had I'm gonna look on his page.
I'm looking up Bob Seger dead, and unfortunately I'm seeing 400 rumors from like 3 years ago and 9 months ago and everything else.
Did he take this down?
Maybe. I hope it's wrong.
Yeah, I hope it's wrong too, man. Oh well. I'm not seeing it on his page now. Maybe he went, oops. And now he's making me look dumb. Thanks, DJ Will.
Whatever. Gave us a chance to talk about Bob Seger, which is fine.
That's right. But crazy stuff. I don't know how we got on to the because we were talking about Jack Russell and so forth. But it's sad, and Great White is another band that the guy's definitely a classic. I would say
sure
some of those Great White songs. Now the guy who came out not saying good things was the Alan Niven producer that had written a lot of the songs, and what I read there, I was just like, wow, I didn't even know some of this stuff.
And that's fine that he said. I saw that too, and it's like, okay, it's fine that you have those opinions, and next week or whatever, it's fine that you air those opinions.
Same day, put that up.
Yeah, how about you let the body get cold before you start hammering the guy? I mean, come on, dude. You had all the chance in the world when he was alive to say it and argue it with him, and you didn't. But now that he's dead, now that he can't fight back, is like, oh, what a piece of shit. He stole my songs. It's like, stop it.
It's I think, physically, he's paid his dues. Jack Russell paid his dues with everything when you just watch the decline that he had to go through. And you could tell that basically it ate him up. How could it not? How could it not eat you up? And you kind of watched it eat him up over the years.
Sure.
Having to live through that horrible tragedy.
He wore it as his.
Yeah.
Fair or unfair, he personally, he's another one that might have been, the same as we were talking about with Janie. Didn't have the thick enough skin to, and admittedly, we're talking about a bad review versus 100 people being burned to death. Yeah. There's a huge difference, but he wore that. He wore every family member that was like, you should be getting the death penalty and you should be burned and you should die. And he wore that every day of the rest of his life from the time of the fire. And it's unfortunate. I would never argue with somebody that was there or had a family member there. And I knew Ty Longley, so I certainly had a friend that died there, and my point to this is that while I wouldn't argue with anybody over it, at the same time, I would never truly in my own heart believe that there was any malicious intent.
Oh no, of course not.
You
Of
know,
course
Jack Russell's whole life was about getting out in front of people, making a couple of bucks, and giving people an hour or two of enjoyment.
This was again that time period that just in my memory sucked. It was kind of when I first started playing in Steven's band. It was that 2001, 2, 3. Things were just going for everybody. That fire really put a damper on things because it made all those small club shows seem unsafe to be at.
Well, and not only that, and then what? 6-8 months later, you had Dimebag.
Right, and who I had got to meet and stuff, and so that was a bummer. The other thing not related to music was the DC Sniper.
Oh yeah. I've watched.
It took a long time to get this guy. So for months he was going across state lines with the kid, and they were committing
Malvo, William Malvo,
and they were going after not one type of person. They were there was no pattern, so everybody
purposely
was
random. Yeah,
so random that no one's safe. They're getting kids, women, old people, young people. There's nobody you could say
grocery
hey,
store, gas station, school.
Because remember the killers, like was it the Zodiac or something, was just looking for young girls that were with brunettes or something. It was like some specific
all those guys.
thing that
Ted
you could
Bundy. Ted Bundy. The Ted Bundy. I guess I shouldn't say this way, but I'm gonna say it this way. I'm a big serial killer fan. Like I follow serial killers a lot, and almost all of them have a pattern. Ted Bundy had a pattern of these types of girls with their hair parted in the middle and long hair and straight hair, and Gacy always took young gay men and so
that was just one group of society that had to be cautious. Everybody else didn't worry about being a Wayne Gacy victim.
Well, and another, all the famous ones had a pattern. Dahmer, was grabbing young gay dudes in
black, Asian, and Hispanic, not so much white, right?
Not white dudes, because people would look for the white dudes where it was the police. I mean, it's a famous story about Dahmer, is that he literally was drilling a hole in one guy's head. The guy somehow escaped.
I remember.
Got out to the street. Some woman called the police. Police came, saw him. He came out and said, "Oh, we're just having a lover's quarrel," and they gave him back to him.
The kid didn't speak English either, I don't think.
Yeah.
That was part of the problem.
Plus he had a hole drilled in his head.
Yeah.
From a drill.
Wow. That's in the movie. That's in the movie.
Yeah.
They show that scene, and it's so crazy. It was like nightmare that they would take him back there.
And the cops are just like, "Oh well." The cops didn't want nothing to do with the whole gay thing, so the cops are like,
bingo.
"Oh, well,
I think
whatever.
I see is your butt's bleeding there. We're just going to drop you off."
Yeah, just go back with him. He'll take care of you tonight. Go ahead. Beat it,
I think
kid.
it was an adult too. It wasn't a kid. It was like
he's
somebody
like 19 or something.
It was
but
very young, but not a minor.
Not a minor.
where a crime was necessarily committed.
But there's a crime in the murder and drilling a hole in someone's head. But the worst part about that is, if I'm not mistaken, it's one way or the other on this. He either killed that one and then killed his brother later.
Oh, great.
Like a year or two later, or killed his brother first and then killed that one a year or two later. But somehow he killed two people in the same family, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
Dahmer was a mess.
He ended up getting murdered in prison.
Yeah, he ended up getting taken.
Because that's the one thing. Yeah, you killed all black people, but they obviously know somebody that's in prison themselves.
Well, and just, dude, there's the famous aspect of that as well. Would you want to be somebody famous going to prison? Not me.
They've changed things since then. It seems like those kind of people are separated.
Protective custody or something.
Yeah, they're almost in solitary most of the time.
Sure.
For their own protection.
No, they definitely need to be.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know how we went from guys snoring on your shoulder to Jeffrey Dahmer.
I mentioned the DC Sniper. I remember just that time period was not good, even though it was new for me and I was enjoying going on the road. The shows were not glamorous. I mean, if you watch the Rat Behind the Music, they kind of show Piercy's band and we're playing like somewhere and there's nobody there, and it makes it look like we're very unsuccessful and the band's terrible or something, which I remember hurt my feelings, you know, at the time, because you're like, finally get on a MTV Behind the Music,
Sure.
and then it's like some shitty, you know, perception of your band. But that's kind of how it was for the 80s bands until about 2005 or 6. It started to go back, because again, people started missing that authentic rock from the 80s that just wasn't there. It wasn't like, where is it? These newer, because new metal came up, and if you were young enough, you could like it, but the older ears weren't really that into a lot of these bands.
The biggest I'll disagree with that, but you know, I don't think new metal was the problem. I think new metal was the new 80s metal because it was showy. You know, I can remember seeing Korn and them having like little trampolines on stage and doing backflips and shit while they were playing. And it was cool. I think the era right before that is what hurt the most. When you went from entertainers in the 80s, a Rat show. I've talked many times about the stage with the mirrors and the lights and the, you know, explosions and fireworks and all kinds of shit. And it was an entertaining show. Ted Nugent shooting the flaming arrows across the stage and shooting, you know,
or the legit talent, to where, you know, because to play the solos and stuff of the 80s, you had to really be great on guitar to sing those songs, those anthemic songs or whatever was going on. These were real singers. But in the new metal thing, it was aggressive. And I liked Korn and those bands too. I was young enough to enjoy it, but they weren't playing guitar solos. A lot of the stuff anybody could probably play on guitar. The drums and stuff started getting a little more complex maybe, but it's just not the same. And when you, even now, like, I don't really go and listen to Korn. I'm more apt to probably listen to some 70s or 80s stuff before I would go listening to that early 2000s metal stuff.
See, to me, the problem where it got lost, though, was the era right before it, the shoegazer stuff, because you went from entertainers to boring as shit. And I'm talking about Candlebox, and I'm talking about Sponge, and I'm talking about, I don't know, what was the Last Resort band? This is my last resort. Papa Roach, and Seven Mary 3 and Third Eye Blind. All these bands that came out after the 80s bands were boring. Even Deftones. I know a lot of people like the Deftones. I personally don't.
The presidents of the United States.
Lump. She's in my head. Ugh.
God, it was
bad.
The 90s were awful.
Bad, boring. Dude,
if you want to call me baby, just go ahead now.
Let's not pick on the Spin Doctors now.
Oh,
I'm a Two Princes fan now. I like that song, but
that is a good song.
But they were boring as well. I mean, I went to see them once and they sucked. They were so dull.
Mr. Jones and me. Like all those bands, Crows. I was just like, I don't want to be
Counting Crows.
I don't want to be in a band like this. Like
live.
When I turned 18 was 1990. So it's just like, oh, welcome to adulthood. Now everything sucks. And all those guitar solos you aspired to play, they're illegal. And we don't play that kind of music. It has to be really simple and stupid. And anybody could play it on guitar. And that's what we were subjected to for 10 years. Then there was a revolt of that white bread stuff, and they had the Korn and some of these heavier bands, Sepultura stuff, Pantera, but
a lot of that stuff, Fear Factory, Machine Head,
right? So there was that, but then people were going, well, all these guys are yelling and everything's tuned down all low and everything, and they were starting to miss that rock thing again. And that's where things started to get good. It was like the mid 2000s, around the time I remember playing the Wasp tour and stuff like that, and the shows started kind of getting bigger again, and miraculously so. And here we are all these years later, still doing it. I'm in my 24th year of the band, and we're playing our biggest events we've ever done, which is I'm so happy for, grateful for. But is there a scientific reason for this? I don't know, other than nobody, as Chris said, is replacing it.
No, there's no replacements. I'm going to address this real quick. Deftones and System of a Down played 50,000 people. I don't deny that.
Mhm.
I don't deny that the Deftones are talented. I don't deny that System of a Down is talented. I do deny that either are good because I hate them both. You know,
I think they both have good singers. Personally, they're both capable of like at least singing. Like they're not just
they're not
screamers. You know what I mean?
But I just System of a Down. I just can't handle. I can't. It's like shut up.
I did like that. I remember I did buy that album. Like if a band
Sugar.
came out in the 2000s. That like Sugar Smack says it like that. He's like, you're gonna get smacked with the sugar. Oh shit! I forgot where I was going with that.
About something about the 2000. If you bought a CD in the 2000s,
yeah. I bought. So if there was a band that was kind of doing something completely different or like kind of changing the game a little bit, I remember buying the Tool record, one of the Anima or something. I thought that was a different kind of sound that I kind of wanted my ears to hear. And then the System of a Down was kind of like that. It seemed like the next wave of hard music. So I did kind of not study it, but purchase it, listen to it. It was different. It was just that's all I could say. It was unique. There was a uniqueness to it. I haven't seen too much of that since then where I'm like, I gotta buy this. This is a whole game changer here. I gotta go buy this record and let my ears get acclimated to it so I can produce music like
I think
this.
the last one was probably Tool.
Right.
Maybe on some level, maybe the only band that's like that right now that is kind of changing the landscape a little bit is Gojira.
Okay, they were at the Olympics. They played right, and that was pretty dope.
That was pretty good, but their sound is different.
Right.
Like if you listen to their whole albums, they really have a unique sound that is theirs, and they are very talented.
That's hard to do.
It is. It very much is. And Tool, dude, I'm with you with Tool. I love Tool. But they were a shoegazer band too. They are boring as fuck live. I mean, I've seen them a bunch of times. And look, I don't like to ever talk bad about Tool because Maynard referenced me in his book, which is still one of the thrills of my entire life. He actually credited my review of the Enema record that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. He credited me in his book for a review that I wrote for Scene Magazine.
Nice.
There's literally just one little thing that says, and as written by scene writer Chris Aiken, Tool is a thinking man's band or something. I don't remember what the quote was.
Thinking man's band.
But it was something that I wrote about them like that, and I didn't even know about it until the book had been out like a year because I didn't read it. And my friend Matt just sent me a screenshot, and he was like, "Dude, did you know you were in Maynard's book?" And I was like, "Maynard who?"
How many Maynards do you know, though?
I was like, well, I don't know any. That's the point. I don't know Maynard personally at all. And I looked and he sent me the screenshot, and I was like, that's the coolest shit ever. That I got nicked for a book.
That's great, man.
But I loved Tool's music. I still love Tool's music.
Right.
But on stage, boring as shit.
Sound fantastic, but I've seen Tool live a couple times, and it's like, wow, the guitarist does not move. He's just staring at his thing.
Boring.
He does not move at all. The bass player kind of is like, at least like kind of going like this a little, but that's not my school. Like I grew up watching AC/DC and Van Halen and these bands. Like I want to see these guys sweating. I want to see, and I try to be that. I try to bring that myself as much as I can without looking too outrageous. I don't want to, be the center of attention or something, but I'm up there moving because that's how I grew up.
Dude, those kind of bands, they can have their life, and if they're exceptional musicians, they can make it like a Tool. Another band like that is a 70s band, 70s, 80s band, but I think that they're musically talented, but again, boring as all hell. Rush.
Yeah.
Rush, great band. Certainly wrote some great songs, but seeing them live, dude, I walked out on them twice. I watched Mr. Big blow them off the stage. Mr. Big, not a great band. Not a great band, but I watched them a couple of times, and then Rush would come out and play, and it's just, dude is singing about fucking trees or whatever, and they're just all standing still, and I'm just like, now I'm out of here. I can catch the strip club and catch me an hour and a half of strippers or something. Be way more entertaining than this.
Wowzers. So yeah, a lot of death in the news, but unfortunate. This happens. That's why it's important to, I guess, go check out these bands while you can. Out. The '80s bands are coming to an end, folks. So these next like 2 years are probably the last chance you're going to get to see if there's somebody you haven't seen or somebody you love seeing. You got to come out and celebrate it one last time.
I agree. Why don't we do this, dude? We're going to take a quick break. We're going to sell some picks.
Yeah.
Then we are going to come back. And since we're talking about death, I'm going to stay with the death theme, but only in a positive way, if there's a way to have a positive death theme, with something that was so exciting to me that I almost called you at 5 minutes till showtime to say I'm too busy to do the show.
Oh.
That's how happy I am about this death. So,
okay.
But it's not what you think. It's not what you're thinking. I'm not going to celebrate somebody dying. I will tell you that. You'll see in a minute. But hang tight. We will be right back. It is Chris Akin Presents.
Eric with his mohawks fighting wild. Beach Mansion West living like a child. Chris ate those crickets that he's in hell. Dreams of bacon and cheese, now he fell. Eric's gone, SF1 screams loud. Guitar riffs echo through the crowd. Chris trapped in flames, crying out why. Hell's fires burn until he dies.
It's the limited edition 6-big set from Eric Ferrantino's. Get your autograph set today at ericpicks.cmspn.com. $25 includes first class shipping.
I drag the floor, the keys to your city. I smash the surface down into your life. I see the signs that were here for trouble. The hard road and the rift behind. Killing time on things that money can buy.
Brace yourself for the wildest ride of your life. It's the craziest book Chris Akin has ever written, and other things I should not say. Get ready for over 500 pages of pure, unfiltered debauchery. From his military years, Chris Akin spills the shocking stories of sex, partying, violence, and the stuff that's so wild it's probably illegal. You've heard the tales on the Classic Metal Show, but never like this. Don't wait. Get your copy now at chrisakin.net before the censors try to shut it down.